Hey guys, it's Miki ASMR here, and today I'm going to be reading an Iwaizumi Hajime ex-listener. This one is titled What We Have, and as a warning, I just wanted to say, before I start, there is profanity and alcohol consumption in this, so if that is something that bothers you, make sure you click off the video. And without further ado, let's get right on into the video. What we have. Then maybe we should just break up, you threw out Hajime without even realizing what you had just said. In spite of being well aware that it was your ego talking, you refused to relent. After all, this whole argument was his fault, wasn't it? What surprised you, though, was his reply. Fine. He hit his fist on the drywall. Let's break up. Fine. Good luck finding someone who could actually bear with you. You had felt like your insides were convulsing after each second that had passed, while tears threatened to fall from your eyes. God knew that you didn't want to break up, but there was no fucking way you'd admit that you were wrong. Your rage got the better of you, and in no time, you stormed out of his apartment. The moment that you had slammed your car door shut, a distorted shriek that you hadn't realized you had been holding back in your throat had finally made its way out. It devoured the silence like wildfire, before it dissolved into the same empty existence. With all honesty, you didn't want to scream your guts out. You didn't want to walk away from the door. You didn't want to let your rage consume you until it was the only thing that you saw. But you did all of that, and more. The next thing you knew, you were speeding through the expressway with tears that still refused to stop. They fell and fell and fell until you thought that you were crying what was a good 5 years worth of tears. And then you'd cry some more. You could hardly breathe as you thought back to what had just happened, each occurrence repeating over and over in your head like a broken record. It haunted you. So you stepped onto the gas pedal, as though somehow, if you were fast enough, you disappear into the fabric of time. And hell knew, in that moment, you wanted nothing more than to dissolve into the void. But then, a luminescence invaded your vision. For a moment, you thought your desire had been fulfilled, until the pain came. It felt as though the air had been eluding you, or the air that had been eluding you earlier that evening had suddenly disappeared completely. Simultaneously, you could only imbibe, I don't know what that says, in incursion of your infernal heat that was stuck on your head, after extending your entire body. However, thankfully enough, it was only a brief moment. The next thing you knew, you could only hear a hum of the breeze, and you could only feel from the side. All you could feel, aside from your numbing cold regret. That night, you didn't think about how beautiful the sky was, not even how the blanket of stars cascaded brightly over the dimming sky. All that was there was an empty feeling of not having Hajime by your side. ... This is a letter to Iwaizumi. To Iwaizumi, you were the most beautiful thing the world had to offer, in spite of the abundance of scars and bruises tattooed on your skin, in spite of your serpentine wires wrapped around your body, in spite of how very gradually you fled your being. He watched you as you slept on the hospital bed. After all, that's all he could do. He could very clearly remember how the breath was knocked out of his chest the moment that he'd received the call about your accident that dawn. Naturally, he drove to the hospital as soon as he had heard. Hell, he probably would have ended up in an accident too, if he had been just as unlucky as you were. In that moment, he wanted nothing more than to hold you in his arms and to whisper apologies against your lips. But he won't. He knew that he doesn't get to apologize. He doesn't deserve to. It was his fault. You could never wake up. You would spend the rest of your days on that bed. You could wither away without experiencing another second of life. And it was all his doing. If he had just stopped you from leaving that night, then maybe, just maybe, he would still be there to hear your melodious laughter. The idea of never being able to hold you again killed him from the inside out, and the fact that it was all his faults only made it worse. He didn't deserve to be here. He didn't deserve to breathe the same air that you did. So he left. And then it wasn't a letter, it was in his perspective. Your perspective now. The first thing to cross your mind your mind the moment that you had regained consciousness. What? Oh my god. The first thought to cross your mind at your moment of cognizance. I don't know, bro, it's a weird word. Why are these words so complicated? Oh my god. Was the already of your throat. The second was where the hell you were, and when the fuck, and what the fuck, and in what's fuck's, oh my god. And what in the fuck's name happened? Naturally, you remembered. And the third thought involved Hajime. Was he outside, or was he soundly sleeping on his bed? Did he not even care? These were all possibilities that were swirling in your head, but you were too tired to entertain the train of thought any further. It was a struggle to even keep your eyes open, much less to function properly. Before you could quickly slip into another stupor, though, a nurse had rushed into your room before spouting words from her mouth that you couldn't quite catch. Then, before you knew it, all there was yet again was absolutely nothing. Iwaizumi's point of view. Without you, he didn't know what to do. The moment that you had lost consciousness was the moment his world lost all meaning. He felt as though all he could do was drink the day away while he thought of you. Your point of view. The next time you came to, you were only greeted by an overly chipper Oikawa, who gave you a crushing hug the moment that he saw you shift in your bed. It's great to see you too there, buddy, you managed to choke out with your dry voice. You heard him giggle back before he pulled away. Your family's on the way here from the airport. Everybody's stoked to visit you, he chirped. You feel your heart lighten considerably at his words, only to constrict yet again when you realize that he hasn't mentioned Hajime. Is Hajime? You trailed off since you had no clue how to thread on that question. Oikawa seems to know exactly what you wanted to ask, though. Almost guiltily, he began. Iwa-chan's been MIA for the past 24 hours since the accident. He came here as soon as he heard, and he stayed for a while. In fact, the last time I saw him, he was sitting by the chair on your bed. Wait, the last time you saw him? You bursted out in exasperation. What do you mean? How long was that? Oikawa seemed hesitant, but he answered anyways. A month ago. And you haven't heard from him since? A sense of urgency floods your mind. What if something bad happened to him too? Yes. What do you mean by yes? Do you know where he is? Or something? What if... You choked. What if something happened to him? There was more venom in your voice than you would hope for, but that hardly mattered now. Oikawa, thankfully enough, didn't seem to be upset by your wording. He called me before and then went poof. He said that he'd be gone for a while. He finally understood the reason behind that guilty expression he wore. Hajime left you. Your heart sank in your chest as you reclined back onto your bed. More than anything else, sadness and disappointment dominated your surge of emotions that were currently overwhelming you. I'm sure he had his reasons, Ian-chan. Oikawa spoke, but you didn't really hear it. In fact, all you heard were the voices in the back of your head, each one of them realizing that Hajime had abandoned you. In that moment, you felt the pain more excruciatingly than you did when you had the crash. In fact, you would rather slam into a 10-wheeler truck 100 times than to ever have to feel this kind of pain. Before you knew it, you were crying again. Iwaizumi's point of view. That morning, Iwaizumi Hajime practically woke up sweating vodka. The stench of the alcohol latched onto every inch of him, just as it had been for every day that month. After all, it was only when he was intoxicated did the memories of the accident leave him. He didn't drink before, but goddamn he'd be fucked if he didn't do it after the accident. He wasn't drunk when he saw the caller ID showcased on his phone though, so he was sure that this wasn't one of his reoccurring dreams when you'd call him, as if the accident had never happened. This was real. You were calling him. After a few moments of arguing with himself, he decided to answer. Hajime? Your voice rang through the other side of the line. Despite the shitty signal, he could feel the fire that was eating him alive being on each syllable that you articulated. Ryan, his voice was raspy from underuse and alcohol. He knew you could tell. Hajime, I'm at the place where we first met. I'm waiting for you. But he tried to reason with you, but you interjected. I'm not leaving unless you come. With that, you hung up. Wordlessly, Hajime sprung up and dumped himself into a shower before shimmying into his clothes. Without a minute lost, he grabbed his keys and drove to you. Your point of view. You refused to give up on Hajime. You mean he wouldn't have come to the hospital in the first place if he didn't care about you, right? With the last start of hope that you had, you waited out for him by the courtyard of your old high school. You sat beneath the biggest tree, taking shade from the glare of this afternoon sun. Upon waiting, you had traced your hands over the bark, attempting to locate a specific rift. You couldn't help but smile once you found the always marked on the tree. You could remember that day perfectly. That was the day that Hajime had first entertained the idea of PDA on school grounds. It wasn't anything special, really. Nothing hardcore. In fact, all he did was lie his head down on your lap. Strangely enough, that was enough to make him a blushing mess. That was enough to make him a blushing mess, despite trying so hard to conceal it. That was also the first day he said he loved you, and the first time you said it back. Ryan, Hajime called you from your train of thought. He came. He actually came. Maybe all hope wasn't lost. Hajime, you could feel your cracked lips turn into a smile. You look like shit. Stiffly, he stood there, looking quite unsure as to what he was supposed to do. So you motioned for him to sit down beside you, and with hesitance, he did just that. What did you want to talk about? What did you want to talk about? You repeated sarcastically. I think it's pretty clear what I want to talk about. He shifted uncomfortably, which was something he hardly did in the face of your sarcasm. That was when you were certain that something was up. I'm sorry, he replied after a few deleted beats. That's when it hit you. You think it's your fault, don't you? What? The accident. You think it's your fault. You didn't give him a chance to respond before he continued. Well, I'm telling you, it's not. Ryan, don't. He stared at you as if he was drinking in the sight of you. You weren't the one speeding over, or 60 over the speed limit that night. You weren't the one behind the truck that slammed into my car. How was it your fault? He didn't reply. All he did was look into you with those eyes that were just filled with guilt. It wasn't your fault, you whispered against his lips. The circumstances were out of your hands. You pecked him on the lips. So stop blaming yourself. And with that, he pressed his own lips onto yours. His touch was light, as if he was afraid that you'd break underneath his force. However, you could feel the longing within each tug and release. He kissed you lightly, yet firmly. He kissed you as though he had been making up for lost time, and you wouldn't have it any other way. He pulled back for air, whispering against your ear just as he did those years before. I love you. You smiled. I love you too. Oh my god, stop it. That was so adorable. I mean, I kind of wish I didn't have to get in a car crash or anything, but I thought it was cute. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Somebody did ask for a Hajime, so I have another one. It was a Iwaizumi one, so I don't know if there's other Hajimes. There probably is. I think there's like a Hajime Hinata or something. I don't know. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every single time I post a video. And also like the video because it does something for you to walk out with them. And also comment down below some other characters you want me to do, and I'll try my best to do them for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys don't mind that I posted late today. I was kind of busy, as I already said in the last video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!